Back to channel. We are in chapter 63 from Guyton, that is respiration in unusual environments. So here first we have acclimatization. So this is mainly related to higher altitude. So whenever we go to higher altitude, how our body gets adapted to it, that is called as acclimatization. And angiogenesis is also is a part of acclimatization. When our body is adapting to that higher temperatures, especially if some person lives there for a long time, then the new blood vessels start forming. And euphoria is a feeling of happiness, great elation, and or well-being. And hematocrit, the percentage of packed RBC in a sample of blood after centrifugation, uh, also known as packed cell volume. This we already discussed in our blood physiology. And is coming to hyperbaric. So hyperbaric is mainly related to deep sea divers. So let us see what is it. Is refers to the pressure that are higher than normal atmospheric pressure. So actually, in the deep sea, the pressures are very much higher when compared with normal atmospheric pressure. And lassitude is a feeling of weakness, lack of energy, weariness in an individual. So it's like a tiredness. Scuba is mainly an instrument which is used for deep divers, to maintain the respiration normal. So this stands for self-contained underwater breathing apparatus and used by divers during deep sea diving. So we'll see some of the important points here, especially in high altitude. The barometric pressure falls, so this is the reason why which causes the hypoxia mainly. The partial pressure of oxygen before in an inspired air is like about 160 milliliters of mercury, whereas now in the atmosphere it's like only not in inspired air, in atmosphere. In atmosphere at 159. So here the partial pressure of oxygen is like 18 just now in a higher altitudes, and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is also decreased. And in acclimatized person, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide fall to 7 because of increase in respiration. Because of hyperventilation, we always try to move more carbon dioxide out from the body. So by that process, as we want to now take more oxygen, but because of this, there is reverse process. Even carbon dioxide is lost, it has become just 7 millimeters of mercury. It should be like 40 millimeters of mercury normal. And in deep sea, in deep sea normally there is higher pressure around the divers, so they use high pressure to keep the lungs inflated. So blood in the lungs are mainly exposed to increase alveolar gas pressure, so this is called as hyperbarism. We already seen here, refers to pressure that are higher than normal atmospheric pressure. So now we'll see our topic, mainly what are important. Actually, this topic is divided in two types, like respiration in higher altitudes and all other different topics. I will discuss respiration in higher altitudes in next video. First, here we'll see all the remaining important topics which we found in our textbook. So here we see that the effects of acute exposure to high altitude and hypoxia. So actually, if a person is exposed to higher altitude, mainly we can see drowsiness in this person. Lassitude means weakness, mental and muscle fatigue, headache, nausea, euphoria. So these are mainly seen only in acute, in acute conditions. In normal condition, the person may get adapted or acclimatized to there. If it is not, if that particular person is not adapted, then he may form all these conditions. And summary of features of acclimatization to high altitude, you can see a summary here. The principal means by which acclimatization comes about are as follows. So great increase in pulmonary ventilation. Why ventilation increases? To adapt to that atmosphere, because there is low oxygen, and increased number of red blood cells. So as oxygen is low, now the number of RBC increased by erythropoietin, which is released from our kidney. So because of this, if more RBC means it has a more chance to travel oxygen, because in RBC we have hemoglobin, right? And next, increase diffusing capacity of lungs. So the diffusion capacity of lungs should also increase, because then only from lungs it can reach the alveoli, and from there would be greater gas exchange. And next, coming to increase vascularity of peripheral tissue. Yeah, even in the peripheral tissue there should be increased vascularity, because if more vascularity means more blood flow can reach there, means more oxygen can be available to the all body parts. And increase ability of tissue cell to use oxygen despite low, even though there is low partial pressure of oxygen, which it should, ability of tissue cell to use oxygen should increase. Means according to our hemoglobin dissociation association curves, according to that, the graph, the graph should move towards the right side. because if it moving towards the right side, because of increase in carbon dioxide, increase in hydrogen ions, what happens, the oxygen is more released to the tissues, so like that. And one more thing is acute effects of hypoxia. In acute effects, mainly we have found the lassitude, mental, sometimes mental and muscle fatigue may also takes place, some headache, because the blood supply, the oxygen supply even to the brain may also decrease, and occasionally also nausea. And if it is delayed, and if it is for a long time, then even it may lead to twitchings and seizures, and sometimes even coma, and finally death. So when you're going to higher altitudes, if a person has mountain sickness, they need to be careful and carry some medicines. And you can see the hypoxia inducible factors to switch for the body response to hypoxia. So whenever there is hypoxia, mainly there is an important factor called hypoxia inducible factors, which are HIF, especially HIF1. So these are these are released from our body. So whenever these are released, it orders to angiogenesis, increase RBC, increase utilization of oxygen to tissues. So this mountain sickness, this all high altitude, we will discuss in detail in our next video. Now we will discuss the other parts, like you can see acute and severe mountain sickness. The effects of acute mountain sickness are acute cerebral edema and acute pulmonary edema. So this is seen only in acute conditions. In normal conditions, if the person is adapted, it's okay. The person is not adapted, why the edema occurs? Because in order to supply more oxygen to tissues, the blood vessels in all our body gets dilated. As they are dilated, more blood flow. So because of this, it may lead to acute edema in both the pulmonary system and cerebral system. And dyspnea at rest, even inability to walk, cyanosis, and headache with sense of confusion, congestion of chest, even cough with blood in the sputum, decreased consciousness, pale appearance. So all these are seen. And prevention is to slow ascent to facilitate acclimatization. So slow ascent means, if a person wanted to hike some large mountains, they need to better go it line by line, step by step, not directly in one day. They need to go in a heights, different heights for 2 to 3 or some few days, and breathing oxygen to prevent some of these effects. They can also carry an oxygen mask with them, and recognition of symptoms early, and descending to lower altitudes to sleep. Yeah, otherwise if they feel very much congested there, then they can come down from that mountains to lower places to normal levels. And next, we will see about the deep sea diving and other hyperbaric conditions. So in this diagram you can see, actually, this principle is mainly according to Boyle's law. Actually, whenever you go deep into the sea, what happens is the pressure there increases a lot. There are very high pressures inside the sea. You can see here it is completely different. If you go very high to the mountain, in the mountain the pressures are very low, but when you go deep into the sea, in sea the pressures are very high. So as the pressures are very high in the sea, Boyle's law says pressure is inversely proportional to volume. So as you go deeper into the sea, the deeper the pressure becomes very much higher. As the pressure is very much higher, the volume is very much decreased. So you can see the effect of sea on the gas. So what happens in this deep sea divers is, effect of deep sea, the volume to which given quantity of gas is compressed is inversely proportional to pressure. So this principle of physics is Boyle law, and it is extremely important in diving physiology, because increased pressure can collapse the air chambers. So whenever the higher pressure increases in the sea, they may collapse our air chambers, like our alveoli may collapse. If they collapse, then the respiration ceases. So you can see here, of diverse body, especially the lungs, and may cause serious damage. Of course, if the airways are seized, means our lungs are especially affected. And it's coming to nitrogen narcosis at high nitrogen pressure. Actually, whenever we go deeper into the sea, there is more nitrogen pressure. So because of more nitrogen, all our body, every cell, instead of in the hemoglobin carrying oxygen, instead of carrying oxygen now in the deep sea divers, it may carry nitrogen, and whole body will become, a whole body is supplied by nitrogen now. So this is a very serious condition seen in deep sea divers, that is called as nitrogen narcosis. So here you can see, but at high pressures in cause varying degree of narcosis. Mild narcosis is 120 feet. So if you go deep into the sea up to 120 feet, it may lead to mild narcosis. But if you go more deeper, like 150 to 200 feet, the diver may become somewhat drowsy because of low respiration rate, especially to brain. And next 200 to 250 feet, the strength wanes, and the diver feel too clumsy, so it mind may be rotating. So like this, if you go more deeper, there are more symptoms seen, and 250 feet deeper, almost useless as a result of nitrogen narcosis. He or she remains at this depths too long. That actually you need to remember one point, that if he or she remain only for the long time, these symptoms are seen. If just going and coming up, it's not a problem. So nitrogen narcosis has characteristics similar to those of all alcohol intoxication. So in alcohol intoxication, what all the symptoms we see, the same are seen in nitrogen narcosis. Here you can see the symptoms. This is called as rupture of depths. So mainly what happens is this nitrogen dissolves in the fatty substance in the neuronal membrane. So as it is dissolving in the neuronal membrane, it is mainly affecting our neuronal excitability and altering the ionic conduction through the membrane. So this affects the neuronal excitability. So you can see the physiological effects of deep sea diving: nitrogen narcosis at high nitrogen pressures, oxygen toxicity at high pressures, and carbon dioxide toxicity due to deep sea diving. So not only nitrogen narcosis, even oxygen and carbon dioxide are causing problem in deep sea divers. Oxygen is leading to toxicity. If there is higher oxygen in deep sea, then also oxygen toxicity is seen, and carbon dioxide toxicity was also seen. So both carbon dioxide and oxygen may cause toxicity if you go deep into the sea. So that's you can see. Thus, one, the alveolar partial pressure of oxygen. Sorry, not sir. So how oxygen cause poisoning, let us see. Actually, oxygen may lead to cause brain seizures and coma and lethal to the divers if submerged beneath the sea. It may cause nausea, muscle twitchings, dizziness, some vision problem, disorientation, all this. And excess intracellular oxidation as a cause of nervous system oxygen toxicity. So it will do more oxidation if oxygen is more, and also leading to oxidizing the free radicals. So you can see oxidizing free radicals literally swap the enzymes, means they literally change the enzymes and remove them. So because of this, they have serious destructive and even lethal effects. So, normally oxidizing free radicals, those enzyme systems should be normal. If the enzyme systems are not normal, then the free radicals may increase in our body. So, this may lead to lethal effects, especially oxidize the polyunsaturated fatty acids. They are essential components of many cell membrane. So, this oxidization of polyunsaturated fatty acids is decreased. And another effect is oxidize some of the cellular enzymes, thus damaging severely the cellular metabolic system, and the nervous tissues are especially susceptible because of their high lipid content. So nervous tissues are damaged, all the cell membranes are damaged. So therefore most of the acute lethal effects of acute oxygen toxicity are caused by brain dysfunction. As a neural, you can understand, if the neurons are damaged, means our brain also gets dysfunction because of this toxicity. And chronic oxygen poison cause also pulmonary disability. So after, like, not only for some time, as we discussed, if a person is like about like 12 hours of 1 atmosphere oxygen exposure, then the lung passageway may get congested and lead to pulmonary edema. Atelectasis means collapse of our alveoli and lung passageways. So by damaging to linings of bronchi, alveoli begin to develop. So reason for this effect is in the lungs but not in other tissues. So the air spaces of lungs are directly exposed to high oxygen pressure, but oxygen is delivered to other body tissues at almost normal because of hemoglobin oxygen buffer system. Hemoglobin acts as a buffer system. So this problem is mainly seen in the brain, but later it may also pass to other tissues, but in other tissues it is maintained by our hemoglobin oxygen buffer system. So carbon dioxide toxicity at great depths in the sea. So here actually what happens is alveolar carbon dioxide of about like 80 millimeters of mercury, that is twice than the normal in the alveoli. So here the carbon dioxide is also increasing in alveoli twice, because normally it should be 40 millimeters of mercury, but here it is getting twice 80 millimeters. So the diver usually tolerates this buildup by increasing minute respiratory volume to a maximum of 8 to 11 to compensate the increased carbon dioxide beyond 80. And alveolar carbon dioxide, the situation becomes intolerable. So if the situation is tolerable, it depends on person. If the person is able to tolerate it, he just try to compensate it by minute respiration. He try to increase the minute respiration. Even though if it is intolerable, then the respiratory center may completely get depressed, and finally it may lead to respiratory acidosis and also varying degrees of lethargy. Respiratory acidosis is nothing but when the carbon dioxide is increased a lot. So you can see here more of carbon dioxide is increased like double times, so respiratory acidosis, and also may lead to lethargy, narcosis, and finally even anesthesia. So these are all the problems whenever the carbon dioxide toxicity takes place. So these are all till now we discussed the physiological effects of deep sea diving. Now let us see the decompression of the diver after excess exposure to high pressure. So if this diver is continuing to stay in the water for long time deep sea, that too is exposed to high pressure, then what happens? So mainly when a person breathes air under high pressure for long time, the amount of nitrogen dissolved in body fluid increases. So nitrogen is causing a very main problem here. So the reason for this is the blood flowing through the pulmonary capillaries becomes saturated with nitrogen. So as I said before, now all of our body tissues is getting supplied with nitrogen. So the nitrogen is not metabolized by our body. So this is a problem. So it remains dissolved in all body tissue until the nitrogen pressure in lung is decreased back to the lower level. So at which time the nitrogen can be removed by reverse respiratory process. But one more thing, this is also one more thing that even if you want to remove the nitrogen from the body, it takes longer time. So these all problems collectively called as decompression sickness. So the volume of nitrogen which is dissolved in the body fluids at different depths, let us see, like 1 liter of nitrogen is dissolved in entire body at the sea level, and the body becomes body because nitrogen is 5 times as soluble in fat as in water. So nitrogen is more soluble in fat. So because of this, nitrogen easily gets dissolved in the fats, especially in neuronal membrane, and affect it. So now whole body also may get nitrogen. So nitrogen dissolved in water of body comes to almost complete equilibrium less than an hour, but the fat tissue which requires 5 times as much transport, so as relatively poor blood supply is reach equilibrium only after several hours. For this reason, if a person remains underwater at deep levels only for few minutes, not much nitrogen dissolves in body and tissues, whereas if a person remains at deep level for several hours, both the body water and even the body fat become saturated with nitrogen. So this leads to a problem called as decompression sickness. It is also called as bends or compressed air sickness, casein disease, diver's paralysis, or dysbarism. So it has this many names to remember. That is bends, compressed air sickness, casein's disease, diver's paralysis, and dysbarism. And delay comes back if the person if the diver comes back again to the surface of the sea, then he may form some nitrogen bubbles which are developed in the body fluid, which are either intracellularly or extracellularly and cause minus or serious damage. So if these bubbles, the major damage which they do is sometime they may occlude the small blood vessels, later they may completely plug the larger blood vessels progressively. So whenever the blood vessels are plugged, it may lead to ischemia and also sometimes tissue death. So whenever there is ischemia means low blood flow means low oxygen supply, so this may lead to even tissue death. So now here see what are the symptoms of decompression sickness. So the main symptoms are pain in joints. Pain in joints is called bends, and pain in muscles of arms and legs. Nervous system symptoms like dizziness, paralysis, and collapse or unconsciousness. Shortness of breath is called chokes, and even death occasionally. So the plugging of capillaries of lung, this condition is characterized by serious shortness of breath, often followed by pulmonary edema and occasionally death. So this is main reasons of decompression sickness. So physiological principles and prevention and management, let us see. So nitrogen elimination from the body, decompression. So mainly what we can do is nothing but now we need to however finally take out the nitrogen from the body. So but nitrogen removal is also very hard. You can see nitrogen is liberated, only 2/3 of nitrogen is liberated for 1 hour, and about 90% is liberated in 6 hours. So to remove 90% of nitrogen it takes 6 hours. So till that time the patient should suffer all this, or sometimes if it is not if it's not tolerable to me, he may occasionally die. So here are some values at which depth how much minutes, this is given by US Navy. You can check that. And tank depression and treatment of decompression sickness. So we can use some kind of tanks. Why we use, let us see. Diver is actually put into a pressurized tank and gradually to lower pressure back to normal atmospheric pressure. So actually instead of bringing directly, if we bring, the problem is not that only now, as we are directly bringing the diver from inside deep sea into the surface of the sea, the nitrogen bubbles are formed. But instead if we bring progressively, not directly into higher into lower pressure, so from higher pressure into medium pressure, next again into lower pressure, so like that, by putting into pressurized tank we can maintain the pressure, and in a scheduled time we can bring him back. So the diver undergoes recompression immediately to deep level, and decompression is carried out over a period, so several times as long as usual decompression period. So like this, now he may escape this problem. So saturation diving and use of helium oxygen mixture in deep dives. So actually why we use helium oxygen mixture, let us see. So actually they frequently live in a large compress, this deep divers, if they want to work deep in the sea, they are placed under large compression tank for days or week, and remaining compressed at pressure level near it which they will be working. So actually deep divers, during saturation diving, helium is used as a gas mixture instead of nitrogen. Why? There are three reasons. The first one, it has only about 1/5 of narcotic effect, so it is safe, and on 1/2 as much of volume helium dissolves in body tissues, then it is better, and the volume that does dissolve diffuses out of tissues during decompression several times as rapidly does nitrogen, thus reducing the problem of decompression. So even with helium we have less symptoms of decompression sickness, and the low density of helium keeps the airway resistant for breathing at minimum, which is very important because highly compressed nitrogen is so dense that the airway can be extreme, sometimes making the work of breathing beyond endurance. So here with helium even the breathing is coming to, like, it's better. So finally, in very deep divers it is important to reduce the oxygen concentration in gaseous mixture, because otherwise oxygen toxicity will result. So that even if oxygen toxicity height may also lead to seizures. We completed. So you can see here the self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. So this is the apparatus. This is called as open circuit demand system. So open circuit demand system of scuba contain two air cylinders, first valve, hose, mask, demand valve. So let us see what mechanism. One or more tanks of compressed air or some other breathing mixture is used. A first stage reducing valve for reducing very high pressure from the tanks to low pressure. So we can have a valve there, we can control the pressure, and the combination inhalation demand valve and exhalation valve that allows air to be pulled into the lungs with slight negative pressure of breathing, and then to be exhaled into the sea at a pressure level slightly positive to surrounding water pressure. So actually from this air, from this tankers we take inhalation, slowly we'll take, and slowly what we do is we exhale it into the sea itself, not back to the tanks. We exhale the air into the sea itself with a positive pressure. So remember, we take this pressure with a negative pressure but only slightly, later we'll exhale it with a positive pressure. And a mask and a tube system will with small dead space. Even small dead space is present. Dead space is nothing but the air which is not undergoing the gaseous exchange, so even that small dead space is also measured if it's put there. And next is slight extra negative pressure. With each inspiration the slight extra negative pressure in demand valve of mask pulls the diaphragm of the valve open, and this action automatically tank into the mask and lungs. So in this way only the amount of air needed for inhalation enter the mask. So always the air will not enter, only during inspiration how much air it is required, only that much will enter into the lungs. So then on expiration the air cannot go back into tank but will go into the sea. That's what we discussed. So the most important problem, but there is a problem with scuba. What is that? It is limited amount of time. So means with this scuba it is successful, no problems, no decompression sickness, but the reason, the problem is only for the small time the person can be. So if you want to work for a longer time they should be in a decompressed tanks only. So one can remain beneath the water surface, for instance, only few minutes, like only and also up to 200 feet depth. So reason for this limitation is tremendous airflow from the tanks is required to wash carbon dioxide out from the lungs. So actually this you can see they're like small tanks, so we need very big tanks to remove that carbon dioxide, but if we want to carry that big tanks on our back we can't, right? So that is a problem. And the greater the depth, the greater the airflow, greater is the airflow in terms of quantity of air per minute that is required. Yeah, if you want to go more deeper means we need more bigger tanks, but we can't carry that tanks with us. So sometimes we put these people, if we want someone to go more deeper, we put them in a decompressed tanks itself. So because the volumes have been compressed to small size. So this is all about a overview, and like it's not so important chapter, but yeah, some bits may also come from it. So this is a respiration in unusual environments. So this is a part 1. Part 2 will discuss about high altitude sickness, all those mechanism in detail. So that's it.